Shortly after the two achieved the rank of Jedi Knight, in the year 3964, warriors of the Mandalorian culture began an invasion of the Galactic Republic territories in the Outer Rim. Swiftly, the Mandalorian Wars began to engulf the larger galaxy. The Republic turned to the Jedi Council for aid, but the Council of the Jedi refused to be involved in this conflict. Their main reason for this was the belief that the true threat of the conflict was yet to show itself, and if the Jedi involved themselves, they may be weakened, and this unknown threat would be that much greater. They chose to wait until this unknown threat revealed itself, as the Mandalorian Wars ravaged the galaxy. Most members of the Order remained silent on this matter, but the young Jedi Knight chose to speak up. He approached members of the Order and argued that the Jedi must actively aid the Republic military against the Mandalorians. Because of this, the Republic media branded him as the Jedi's own crusader, and this crusader began to build a following of Jedi who shared his beliefs, even though the Order discouraged his efforts. The young man's influence grew like wildfire, as did the Mandalorian threat. Casualties and wounds to the Republic's power continued to spread. Alec, of course, was the first who followed him, and the young man, who would later be known as Revan, was recognized as the honorary master of his followers. Against the wishes of the Council, the young Crusader and his followers involved themselves in the Mandalorian Wars, scouting the enemy lines and searching for ways to convince the Jedi Order to join the war. In a short amount of time, this faction of Jedi that followed him became known as the Revanchist movement, and he became known as the Revanchist. The Revanchist and his followers continued recruiting Jedi and talking to anyone who would listen. They looked for ways to prove to the Jedi Council something that would warrant their official entry into the war. Yet, no matter what they brought to the Council, they refused the request. A grim opportunity presented itself when a Jedi named Pharaoh brought the planet Cathar to the Revanchists' attention. Pharaoh's entire species, the Cathar, had vanished from their homeworld a decade ago. Only buildings remained, and the Republic believed this was simply the result of mass migration due to disease. But Pharaoh, along with the Revanchist, believed this was the Mandalorians' doing, and he believed it was the crucial evidence needed to convince the Council that the Mandalorians were a threat that must be stopped. If the Jedi Order was forced to face Mandalorian atrocities, they would not be able to deny his request. The young Revanchist stayed on Cathar for a while, looking for evidence of whatever tragedy occurred here. At that time, the Jedi Council ordered the recall, or, if necessary, the detention of the Revanchists. This was mainly driven by the rumor that the Mandalorians had been weakened from within by some sort of conspiracy or rebellion within their ranks. This rumor was sufficient reason to demand that the Revanchist and his followers disband. Alec, now known as Captain Malak, returned to Cathar to the young Revanchist, followed by the Jedi Masters to ensure their order was delivered clearly and obeyed. The Jedi Masters ordered the Revanchist and his followers to abandon their quest, claiming the Mandalorians were no special threat. The Revanchist started to believe all was lost, and that the Order could never be persuaded to join the conflict. But in the midst of their discussion, he discovered a Mandalorian mask underfoot. He picked it up, and immediately the entire group of Jedi was enveloped in a false vision of the past. Hundreds of Cathar are storming towards the beach. They are pursued by Mandalorians. The Revanchist and the Jedi try to defend the Cathar, but their lightsabers are useless. This vision, it is of the past. The Cathar and the Mandalorians are phantoms. They continue undisturbed. The Cathar are herded into the ocean. The leader of the Mandalorian forces, Marshal Cassius Fett, orders his troops to prepare to massacre the Cathar from the ships in the sky. The Mandalorians pull back, leaving the Cathar in the water. The Jedi shout at them, but none can hear, and they remain unable to aid the helpless Cathar. Suddenly, a Mandalorian female flies in front of the Cathar and pleads with Fett on their behalf. She says that the Cathar are defeated. There's no need for this genocide. They don't need to do this. Fett declares that the species of Cathar is to be annihilated for dishonoring the Mandalorians during the Great Sith War that happened several years ago. And if this warrior chooses to stand with the Cathar in their final moments, Fett says, she should perish alongside them as well. Fett salutes her efforts before authorizing the warships to fire, killing the Cathar along with the female Mandalorian. The Cathar, the people, and the planet scream around the Jedi. And then it's over. With the vision's end, the Jedi were left alone on the beach, but they had seen what the Cathar had seen, and they felt what they felt. Cruelty, pain, and the death of a species boiled away in the sea. Fett intended to leave only buildings of the Cathar to stand as a reminder of their existence, but this mask was a testament he neglected to destroy, carrying the memory of the tragedy that was hidden from the universe until now. Inspired by the unknown Mandalorian's sacrifice, the Revanchist put the mask upon his face. "I don't know your name, but I will take up your cause," he said. "I will not remove your mask until there's justice, until the Mandalorians have been defeated once and for all. So swears Revan." The Jedi Council was deeply affected by this discovery, and although they were still unwilling to lead the Jedi Order into the war, they permitted the intervention of Revan and his faction on behalf of the Republic. Officially, of course, they still denounced Revan's actions as unwise and too hasty, and dissuaded the rest of the Order from joining his cause. Revan and his Jedi joined the Republic military in battling the Mandalorians openly. At this time, the Jedi Mitra Surik, one of the first who joined him, would become one of Revan's most valuable and trusted lieutenants. In little time, Revan's leadership resulted in a string of military victories. He successfully proved himself as a capable military leader, and in under a year he would be named Supreme Commander and have a third of the Republic military under his direct command. Under his leadership, the Republic began pushing back the Mandalorians. But such a success did not come without a price. Revan's tactics often included moral shortcuts, which involved obtaining victory at the cost of sacrificing resources, territory, and people. They developed a cold approach, colder than that of any Jedi. But this approach was the only one that could work against the Mandalorians, for their brutal and merciless tactics could only be countered in such a way. Over the course of the next 2 years, as they continued aiding the Republic effort in the war, the two discovered an ancient ruin of the Rakata species near the Jedi Enclave on Dantooine. In secret, they explored these ruins. The rooms held within appeared to be so old they predated the Republic. Before they crossed the threshold to the inner chamber of this temple, Malak warned Revan of the consequences, believing that the Council would banish them if they attempted to enter this place. Regardless of his warning, Revan entered, and Malak followed. Here, in the inner chamber, they discovered a star map, a relic of the Rakata species, which showed a part of the location of the Rakatan space station, known as the Starforge.